My name is Don Stuss. I'm the founding president and scientific director of the Ontario Brain Institute. Let me explain to you a bit about the Brain Institute. It was created and funded primarily by the province of Ontario for a specific purpose. Ontario has always had excellent science, excellent neuroscience, but it's not always had the impact on patients. Impact has always been somewhat slow in developing. So the Ontario Brain Institute was designed for a very specific purpose. It was designed to be an integrated system where individuals, scientists, clinicians, patients, families, caregivers, and as well industries that develop products that are helpful to patients with neurological or mental health disorders, to work together in a way to have much more immediate impact. So how is that achieved? There are several ways in which this can be done. So the first way is what we call embedding research within the clinical framework. Research must become an automatic part of every time a patient is seen, an individual with a disorder is seen, for the purpose of gathering data that is useful. This information has to be integrated and to be shared. You need a large number of individuals that are going to participate so that you can have meaningful data. It's sometimes difficult to get adequate information from a small number of individuals. So what we do is bring people together and embed research within the clinical framework. Data are standardized. So when you get an assessment, if you are a family member, if you are a patient, when you get an assessment, you will get the same assessment no matter where you are if the group is involved with the Ontario Brain Institute. The same assessment at the same quality. And that assessment will mean clinical, it'll mean questionnaires, it will mean imaging, it will mean quality of life. It is a full assessment of the totality of a person. The fact that they are standardized means that the data can be shared, that they can be gathered and be equivalent across the province. This immediately means that the province of Ontario becomes itself a research base rather than having an individual institution. If institutions share, what you have is the province becomes that institution. The province becomes the research core. The partnership is key to making this succeed. And the partnerships include those at the research and clinical end, but also the patients, the caregivers, and the families, because this is a partnership to change how individuals are treated, to improve diagnosis, to improve care, and to speed up science so that it gets translated into care more rapidly. To do that, you also need to have industry at the table. Why? Industry is how you have a product that gets used. So if you're going to have a new drug, for example, a new medication, industry has to create that drug. If you're going to have a new tool for investigation, somebody has to develop that tool, somebody has to market it, somebody has to sell it, somebody has to ensure that it's built to quality. So science and industry also have to work together in a different way, in a way that is sharing and integrated. So how does this work? How do you get information to become much more rapidly integrated? Well, let's go back to the first thing I said about having a standardized approach, where no matter where you go, if you are part of the Ontario Brain Institute, you get the same assessment. That means whatever assessment you get is at a research quality. So immediately, the quality of care has improved to a point where it is standardized across the province. Let's take PON, for example, the Province of Ontario Neurodevelopmental Disorders Network. We have 5 programs in the Ontario Brain Institute that we fund. POND is one of them. POND is one that deals with specific disorders such as autism, attention deficit, conduct disorders. This is the way that they started. But the money that is given by the Ontario Brain Institute is used not just to fund research, but to change the way the system works and to create a better infrastructure for assessment, so that POND by itself has moved to share disorders, to share this knowledge, and to share this investigation with other disorders such as Rett, Tourette, Down syndrome. So this becomes a quite amazing group of individuals. So, and the question to be asked then, well, how can you get this? Seems to be so mixed up that it's going to be hard to understand. Why aren't you just dealing with one disorder? The answer is, in today's world, we now are getting more and more knowledge, more and more information that the way these disorders occur may be linked in some way, may be linked in their symptomatology. For example, many children with autism spectrum disorder have attention deficit. May be linked in their mechanisms, meaning the biological basis by which these diseases evolve. So we now know that the genetic basis may be, some of the genetic aspects may be crossing disorders, so that we then learn that we have to look elsewhere to kind of, if we're going to come up with a cure, a better diagnosis, a better understanding. That is, there's not one disorder, but that these disorders cross a spectrum, that if we're going to understand how these disorders evolve, we're going to have to study individuals across the disorders. But let's go back to the standardized assessments. If all of these individuals get the same type of assessment, including from genetics to imaging, from clinical to the family interactions to social outcomes, you have a powerful, powerful, powerful mechanism to start to investigate the mechanisms of the disorders, the potential treatments of the disorders, and the way a disorder unfolds. And it is this way that there will be much more rapid translation of the research into improved diagnosis, but also into improved care. We will then learn to target where we need to put our emphases for the different disorders. There is one step further. I had said that the Ontario Brain Institute deals with 5 different programs. POND is one of them. The others are cerebral palsy, epilepsy, depression, and neurodegeneration. Neurodegeneration means dementia. It is, in some degree, the aging spectrum of what we see in POND. And in neurodegeneration, they're also dealing with multiple disorders. Now, why am I saying that? Well, the bottom line is we now are taking care of individuals to a great degree who are younger to live longer. They may have some of these other disorders. Children with autism may have epilepsy, as many of them do. So the knowledge that is gained within a program can now be shared across programs. And every program does a standardized approach. And all of that data goes into one informatics platform called BrainCode, the Centre for Ontario Data Exploration. And it then becomes an extremely powerful tool to start to understand subcategories of disorders. Let me give you another example of why this is so important. Everybody says we need a cure. We all want to have treatments. We all want to, and there are many trials that are done called clinical trials with different drugs. Well, sometimes, many times, they don't work. Now, do they not work because the medication is bad? Or is it because they have been given to a group of individuals that are diverse? and that maybe they work in a subgroup of those individuals. We never analyze the data like that. But with brain code and with the standardization, we can start to look deep within the framework of these data for what we call phenotyping, meaning characterization of an individual, or at least a group of individuals, that fit within a certain category of abilities or factors that they may have within the system that may respond to a specific drug, for example. So that means improved diagnoses. Improved diagnosis means improved treatments. Let's go a step further, where you don't know whether the drug is going to work, but if we now know that we can look from genetics to the proteins to what happens in the imaging, we can start to say, well, let's use this molecule, and this molecule may be developed for a specific part of the molecular system. We can then start to target in this specific disorder. And if we then try and say, well, look, only a subgroup benefits, but there's another group that doesn't, we can then focus that particular treatment with this group, and the non-responders, the people who don't get better, we can start to look at another mechanism, another treatment. So you can see that one of the things that we're doing is honing down, improving the diagnosis that enables us to test the treatments better. So the overall package, I believe, is that we're going to have, by sharing data, by doing standardized assessments, by linking institutions to work together, by having patients, caregivers, industry, researchers, clinicians, all work as a team, that we have the opportunity for truly improved diagnosis and truly transformation in care.